Welcome back to Sunday Night in America. Imagine carefully planning the execution of someone you don't even know, haven't met, someone who hasn't done a thing to you. That's what Luigi Mangione did. He traveled to New York, carefully plotted the execution of UnitedHealthcare CEO Brian Thompson, shot Thompson in the back, and then kept firing until Thompson was dead. Did his best to evade capture, and now he's a hero to some on the left. Thompson did nothing to Mangione. Mangione was not a client, he was not a patient, he was not a customer of UnitedHealthcare, but that didn't stop Elizabeth Warren from saying the quiet, sinister part out loud.
We'll say it over and over. Violence is never the answer. This guy gets a trial who's allegedly killed the CEO of UnitedHealth. But you can only push people so far. And then they start to take matters into their own hands.
Take matters into their own hands. Is that what we're calling murder now? What do you think a jury trial is, Professor Warren? That's the people taking matters into their own hands. It's called justice, not executing someone on the street. That's actually called murder. There's a pretty big difference between a trial and an execution, and even a recovering law professor should get that. Some lunatics on the left like a cold-blooded premeditated murder, but not a veteran defending others on a New York train. No. The left is mad that Daniel Penny was acquitted. So much for taking matters into a jury's hands. No, some on the left wanted Penny convicted and sent to prison. Alvin Bragg puts politics ahead of public safety. That's what you get when you elect so-called progressive prosecutors. And that leads to insane views like the left making a hero out of premeditated murder, but vilifying someone who acted in defense of others. The world has truly turned upside down. Joining us is former Manhattan prosecutor Elliot Felig. Welcome, Counselor. I know the squad and Elizabeth Warren and Jamal Bowman have some really insane views on criminal justice, but celebrating the murder of an executive, is that their version of populism, killing CEOs?
And look, to the extent that they're justifying this, what they're doing even worse is they're tacitly encouraging copycats, which underscores why you need a vigorous prosecution to effectively say, no, there is going to be accountability. That will have hopefully a deterrent effect and discourage copycats. And so far, at least the men and women of law enforcement are taking it very, very seriously. They're building an extremely strong case against Mr. Mangione.
Speaking of prosecutions, Daniel Penny was prosecuted. Here's Daniel Penny on the verdict, and I'll ask you about it on the other side.
You go from a hero to a villain when they say they're going to indict you.
Right.
How do you feel about that?
Very anxiety-inducing. But throughout this whole process, I would remind myself of the witnesses coming up to thank me. And really, no matter what outcome the trial had, I only cared about what the witnesses said about the situation.
So, Elliot, Elizabeth Warren was quick to let us know the guy on tape shooting a man in the back gets a trial, but so did Daniel Penny. She just didn't like the verdict that the jury rendered.
Right. It shows, firstly, and you've always known this, I've known this, the most powerful people in the criminal justice system, because of the enormous discretion they have, it's not the police, it's not judges, it's prosecutors. And Alvin Bragg exercised his discretion in a way that really ran contrary to what witnesses that he himself, that his office presented, said about the situation. Ultimately, clearly the jury found that Mr. Penny's actions were justified. And the basis was the accounts probably from other witnesses who said, hey, we were there, we were in that situation, we were scared to death.
All right, when is New York going to see what the rest of the world, including California? California is increasingly dumping their so-called progressive prosecutors. When do you think this experiment with progressive prosecutors is going to end?
Right. San Francisco threw out their very progressive prosecutor. Oakland threw out of office their very progressive prosecutor. Los Angeles just had an election. The very progressive prosecutor failed to win re-election. So there's a trend happening. We are seeing a backlash. And the Penny case certainly captured public interest. He raised millions of dollars for his criminal defense fund. So you have to wonder, maybe New York is next. Maybe New York voters are the next to say, you know, we've had enough with this approach to criminal justice.
All right, take us to evidence class real quick. For those on the left who think the healthcare industry is going to go on trial with Luigi Mangione, please disabuse them of that notion. This is not going to be a trial about the healthcare industry. It's going to be a trial about whether or not you executed somebody in the back on a street.
Right. I mean, think of a way a trial breaks down. The prosecutor calls the witnesses. The prosecutor is just going to bring out factual witnesses to say this is the evidence against him. To the extent that the defense, and I don't think they'll ever go to trial because it's such a strong case, but if the defense tried to somehow hijack this trial and try to put the healthcare industry on trial, the judge is going to just shut that down. It just doesn't bear on the jury's decision, which is simply, is there proof beyond a reasonable doubt that he committed this murder? And clearly there's a tremendous amount of evidence.
Elliot Felig, always love getting your legal insight. It is correct and pithy, which is great characteristics for television. So thank you for joining us on the Sunday night.
Thank you. My pleasure to be with you.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.